She was a producer at GSD&M. I was an art director. I had a copywriter for a partner, and we worked together to come up with ideas. And eventually we would sell something, of course, working under our creative director at the time. And then once we've sold something, say a commercial, then we partner with Karen, and she would lead us through the production process of taking that script idea, the storyboard idea, all the way through actually shooting it, actually like casting and putting sound to images, and being on set, developing the actual commercial work and putting it out there. But continue, if you have other questions, I can speak more easily and readily to your questions than I can I'm not a big talker, so bring it.
Yeah, I think if anyone does have any questions throughout the whole process, throughout the conversation, don't be afraid to unmute yourself or add them in the chat, so that we can keep the conversation going.
No other takers?
I can ask questions.
You can.
How did you know you wanted to be an art director, or did you know?
How did I know? Thank you. That's a good one. I didn't know that I wanted to be an art director. I went to a school of the arts. I grew up in DC, so I went to a school of the arts there. And coming out of that school, just, they taught us drawing and painting and all that stuff. And coming out of school, I thought I wanted to paint. Well, I was pretty certain I wanted to paint, but I was 18-year-old certain that I wanted to paint and study painting. And so my dad nudged me into, he told me, you'll always be able to paint. Fortunately, he's an artist, so he has an artist perspective. He's a singer, vocalist, vocal coach. And so he told me, you know what, you'll always be able to practice your craft. You'll always be able to paint. Go study something that you can get a job with. And so I ended up studying graphic design in college. And really that was it was the closest thing to me to actually being able to create things, and at least 2-dimensional things, flat things. So I studied graphic design. And when I graduated from college, I went to college in DC at Howard University. And when I graduated from college, I was just kind of like, okay, well, what next? I was lucky enough to get a job in DC. But the thing that I'm sure you all know about DC is it's a very just kind of government-oriented, politics-oriented environment. So the job that I had was for a management consulting firm. I didn't even know what that was. I found out that it was very, very boring, and I hated it. So a buddy of mine who'd graduated a year or two before me, but was also in the design program at Howard, he had gone on to an advertising postgraduate program called Portfolio Center in Atlanta. And so while I was sitting at my boring job that I hated, he would call me from the park in New York or something. And he's like, hey man, you need to go back to school. You need to go to the school I went to. And, probably the next 3 or 4 months, I was there because I was just done. He told me about all that he was doing. He was also an art director. He told me about, coming up with ideas and sitting around and just laughing and drinking beers late in the office, just all of the debauchery stories from advertising, even just 20 years ago. And so I went back, I went to the Portfolio Center, studied art direction. And that's really when I started to understand what art direction was. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know what creative direction really was. But as I got to understand it and understood what the program was about, it looked highly appealing to me just because while it allowed me to use my art background, it also allowed me to think more so in storytelling broadly and use that same creative muscle that I'd only really been connected to as like just art, you know, my own ideas, to use it more strategically, to craft messages that can motivate people to do things. That was exciting to me. So that was my introduction to art direction and essentially advertising.
I'm curious how the process was for you, I guess starting off as an art director and then now being a creative director. Is that, does that take a long time?
You know, it's different for different people. I think because creative direction, if you really just accept it as just a management role for creatives, management is, no matter what your discipline or your focus is really just that. It's really just a managerial aspect of whatever that interest is, or whatever that specialization is. So for some people, they're super mature or super organized or super buttoned up, and they might get to that management worthy level of experience, you know, level of aptitude to lead in that way. Some get there in 5 years. Some buddies of mine and I in Portfolio Center, we were thinking, yeah, we're going to be creative directors before we're 30. That didn't happen. But you know, that transition really just has to do with experience and maturing into patience and maturing into your understanding of how people relate to one another. Much of it you'll bring from your own personal kind of growth through life. You'll find yourself pulling from things that maybe your aunt or uncle taught you, or your father or grandfather or grandmother. They're really just life things, because any organization is going to be, it's going to, people relate to each other in situations just like they do in other situations, unless you're talking about something that's extreme, either extremely an extremely passive environment or an extremely aggressive, you know, environment, or war or something. That those are people, for the most part, deal with each other in the same way. We have to cooperate. We're going to disagree. People are going to be wrong and need to be kind of brought back into the fold. You'll need to be able to kind of assess where you are within an environment, an organization, and how you can contribute and consistently contribute and consistently kind of assess and see where you are, and are you growing? If you're not, you know, what are your needs? So it's just I think of it as just over time, you just mature, and those roles might interest you, or, you know, they might happen to you. Somebody might pull you and say, you know what, we want to put you in a leadership position. That didn't happen to me, but there are a couple of different ways that those things unfold.
Jaleisha wants to know how do you do that assessment, and what does it mean?
How would you do the assessment to say, hey, you know, you're ready to be a creative director, or what?
Yeah, like how do you like sort of like self-reflect on yourself and your growth? Like what is that?
Same way you do. You're really taking in, yes, same way. You're really taking in information from your environment. You know, you're modeling, you're looking at people that you think, wow, they're really good at that thing. I want to do that thing. And you start to kind of, maybe in situations, you might make decisions the way you think that they might have made that decision. Or it might be more direct. You might walk up to that person and say, hey, I really want to be like you one day. Maybe not necessarily in whatever your words are, but and in most instances, when you're expressing to people that you respect them and perhaps you might need their help in some way, they're often open to doing that and helping you and guiding you. So mentorship is huge. I don't think I took advantage of that as much as I, looking back, wish I had. But that's a huge part to it, just kind of, again, like in any environment, with any social environment, like you're just kind of seeing, you're assessing it. It's a good thing to kind of not be so inside yourself that you're not aware of what's going on, because there are learning opportunities there that can unfold for you. I don't know if that answered the question. I hope it did.
It answered the question.
Good, good, good.
You have some other questions in the
I
chat.
see some chats here. Should I be looking in the chats?
We do
Yeah,
have a few
you-
questions in the chat,
Okay.
but I think I can ask them for you
Okay.
while you pull up your work. We do have some people, Lily, who wants to see your work, but before that, or while you pull them up, how many clients or projects do you currently oversee? Or is all the work being produced at your agency? And that's something Karina Mehta asked.
Well, I'm overseeing right now probably just four clients right now, and they're all active, meaning they all have projects that are in some at some level of progress or completion. Yeah, we have a couple of, we're actually doing 2 TV shoots this week virtually in Kansas City, and a couple of other projects that we're just developing.
Yeah, I think let's see your work then, and we'll ask
Okay.
some more questions during and after.
Awesome. So the campaign that I'm going to share with you, obviously we're all in the pandemic, and all the states are needing to solve the health care of their citizens themselves. So the federal government gives the states money, say, hey, here, you need to vaccinate everybody. Here are some funds to spend at your discretion for that ultimate goal of either vaccinating people or getting people tested. So the state of Kansas came to us, came to Barkley and said, hey, you know what, we'd love for you guys to do this work for us. And, of course, when the governor comes to you, you don't say no. So we jumped at the chance. And in the challenge that we had to solve for was, by the time, and this is late October. By late October, we all knew what it was. This was a pandemic, and we knew, for the most part, there was only one way out of it: vaccines. Vaccines ended polio, they ended smallpox. Vaccines end pandemics, or at least that was the position that we took. And so in order to get people to overcome whatever their particular beliefs were, or aversions to perhaps getting tested, and ultimately perhaps getting vaccinated, we had to cut through a lot of kind of community cultural clutter. I'm sure you guys have all heard the different perspectives around getting tested and getting vaccinated. So we had to cut through that. We had to get a message out that appealed to everybody, and we had to do it in a way that would kind of jar you. However, most of what you've seen on TV around the pandemic is the same things: these empty streets, right? There's the solemn music. You might see one person look out a window. All of that is mostly stock imagery. And you'll probably see some, drone shots overhead, that kind of thing. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have some fun. We thought that we could have some fun, and we thought that people were ready to have fun about it. So we developed a campaign using some of the most vulnerable Kansans that we could think of, and that's the elderly. Old people are hyper vulnerable to COVID. It's real. And most people love an old person somewhere. It may be, even if it's your mailman, all of us can relate to old folks that we care about. So we thought, hey, let's have them speak to everybody. And old people also have the license to speak however they want because they've lived a lot of life, and they're going to say it and you're going to listen. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you guys the campaign that we called Old Schooled. 1 second. All right, y'all seeing my screen? Great, I'm gonna play the first spot for you. Is the audio share on? I don't know. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, it should
Sharon
work.
is a 74-year-old Kansan.
I'm Sharon, and I got a bone to pick.
Sharon wants every Kansan to be protected, so she's here to remind you to get a free COVID test.
Oh, I'm not here to remind you. I'm here to tell you how it is, and I don't want to hear any complaining or whining or whatever.
You've been old schooled. Get a free COVID test, wear a mask, and keep your distance. For yourself and for seniors like Sharon. It's up to us, Kansas.
Trust me. With me.
So that's Sharon. I'm gonna show y'all, I got 4 more in that campaign.
Get a free COVID test and stop making out with randos.
You've been old schooled. Get a free COVID test. Schedule yours at gogettested.com. Darlene is a 71-year-old Kansan.
Hello, I'm Darlene.
Darlene wants every Kansan to pull together to stop this pandemic so she can get back to her normal life.
I miss the rock concerts, MMA fights, NASCAR, and monster truck rallies.
Darlene is the life of the party. Let's get her back to it.
Get a COVID test so me and my girls can kick it.
You've been old schooled. Get a free COVID test. It's free for everyone. It's up to us, Kansas. Jerry is a 70-year-old Kansan.
Hi, I'm Jerry.
Jerry is here to tell every Kansan to get a free COVID test.
Go get a COVID test. And I don't want to hear your bellyache.
He knows testing is one of the best ways to stop the spread.
No grumbling, no squawking, or I will make you drop and give me 20, Buster. I was a gym teacher.
You've been old schooled. Get a free COVID test. It's free for everyone. It's up to us, Kansas.
And then one last one.
Lewis is a 68-year-old Kansan.
Hi, I'm Lewis.
Lewis wants every Kansan to get a free COVID test.
What I know is if you don't take the test, I won't be happy.
If Lewis isn't happy, he might give you a wedgie.
Now, that's my favorite. Yeah.
You've been old schooled. Get a free COVID test. It's free for everyone. It's up to us, Kansas.
Cool. And that is the show, y'all. What'd you think? Really?
Those are pretty dope.
Cool. Do y'all have any questions about those?
Did you have a say in the casting?
Did I have a say in the casting? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I had a say in the casting. We casting during a pandemic is it's a little different. So basically, normally we would the actors would go to a casting call to a location, and they would all just kind of go through their lines, and we'd look at all that video footage and make our selects then that way. Now they have to send in images of themselves or videos of themselves. And so it's just, you have varying degrees of comfort with technology. So that's a hurdle. But yeah, it worked out.
How many projects have you done like during the pandemic? Was that the only one you've been able to do?
Oh, I worked on a national campaign for the pandemic. I got to present to Dr. Fauci. Y'all know that dude, right? Yeah, I got to present to him. That was fun. He's a nice guy. But we developed a campaign for similar purpose, like telling people to get tested and just follow the protocols that that have been outlined. I did that for a couple of months. That was a lot of work between probably back in maybe June, July, August. Yeah. And then that's when in September, I started working at the company that I'm currently with. And it's been all go since then. Several projects that we've completed.
What's your favorite project that you've ever worked on? Is that too many?
Wow, you know what? You tend to forget them. I mean, you have fun while you're doing them, even if you really dig it. Like I dug doing this, but you never really. You just kind of keep going to the next thing. You know, you'll like something, but after a while, it fades. That feeling fades, and you're chasing that again. You're always chasing the next awesome idea. So I don't necessarily think I have a favorite of all of them. There's a commercial that I did maybe probably 24 years ago or so that I really liked. I really liked that commercial. It was for an aquarium. But it's actually not that long ago. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm gonna pull up my website. I can show you all that one. Well, I won't take you through my website. Figured y'all could do that on your own if you ever care to, but I will show you from the website. So I enjoyed, y'all seen it? Yeah. I enjoyed working on this project. It was for a local aquarium. And as a kid, I always loved animals. So it was just going to be fun for me. But what was cool about it was that it was a grand opening of this aquarium. They had previously been the New Jersey aquarium, and they were changing to adventure aquarium. So they were changing from just the state aquarium to like this new and different thing. And with that name, it just took us immediately as creatives. It took us to, wow, you know, if they like and they're embracing the idea of adventure, well, we got to promise adventure. And an idea sprang up around that. A truth that we kind of uncovered was that for the most part, if there's something that's dangerous or adventurous that you're looking to do, you'll often have to sign a waiver. You'll often have to say, hey, you know what? Something happens to me, you guys are okay, I won't sue you. Or if I die, it's not going to be on your hands. So that idea, just that thought, spawned this campaign, and we're calling it Welcome. Well, it's just the Adventure Aquarium. We don't have a name for it. I'll just play one of these, or not. You know what? Yeah.
We, the Yeager family, hereby accept the fact that when we enter the Adventure Aquarium, we forfeit our position at the top of the food chain. We realize that at times we will be completely surrounded by large, toothy, meat-eating fish. And we acknowledge this with the full understanding that we, in fact, are made almost entirely of meat.
And then I'll play just one other from that campaign.
I, Dustin Hayes, upon entering the West African River experience in the Adventure Aquarium, was made fully aware that while the hippopotamus appears to be both roly and poly, it is in fact one of the most dangerous animals in all of Africa, with jaws capable of snapping my spine like a stale soda cracker.
Cool. That's it. How do I unshare?
That was cool. We did get some other questions here in the chat. Jennifer wants to know, how has the workflow changed since the pandemic?
Mm. How has it changed? It's, you know, we've been doing it for so long, it's kind of hard to remember how it functioned before. The workflow itself has not changed, I don't think. It's more so how we are relying on each other and communicating with each other. I think that the functions are the same. It's just that you now have to, you can't just walk down the hallway and get the answer to a question. You can't just kind of look over in the cube beside you and see what your friend is working on, and maybe throw out an idea. Everything you have to, it's a concerted effort now. So that component of socialization that happens at work naturally, that's super necessary, that doesn't happen. So you have to manufacture that for yourself somehow, whether it's just a friend group that you have, or, you know, even if you're getting on a Zoom with people that you work with, you know, maybe there's just a shoot the shit Zoom where you're not just working on stuff and work and meetings. And then also just kind of constantly sharing ideas, making sure that idea share process is just freely flowing, and you know, being super aware that since our mode of working and communicating is different, doing, you know, following through to make sure that everybody on the team is it's working for everybody on the team, because we just all communicate differently. You know, the last thing that you would want as a leader is to think or know that, you know, maybe some of the quieter people in your group who have awesome ideas aren't being heard. Like things like that, you just have to really just do the work to figure out if the folks that you're looking at on Zoom every day, you know, see how they are you checking in, like what are their needs, because those things unfold again a little more organically in an office than they do via video screen.
And then Christy had a question a little bit ago. As a creative director, what is expected from you when it comes to having your portfolio together? And I think that's something also that I would like to know. Like, as an art director, how is it different from an art director to a creative director? Like, your portfolio, did you have to like do a lot of changes to it, or did it just grow with you?
It grows with you. I think, though, again, with the earlier question about becoming a creative director, some people go into advertising, and you can be the same age, go into it just a little clearer with what they want, a little clearer in their understanding of what that career path is, and a little more prepared to take advantage of that environment socially, take advantage of the environment in terms of mentorship and you know, just kind of soaking it in and understanding what the opportunities might be for them in the future. So, and I totally lost my train of thought. What was the question again? It's late, sorry.
It's okay. I think to go with what you just said about mentorship, she also asks, for someone seeking mentorship, how do you recommend someone really take advantage of it?
Oh, yes. I think that mentorship is it's an interesting thing, because it seems like it might be one way, but it's not. You know, the person who is the mentor, they have to be inspired. Not every mentor is just self-driven. to like, oh, I want to go out and find myself an apprentice or, you know what I mean, or mentee. They have to get something from it too. But the thing that they should be getting from it is just your enthusiasm, you know, whatever that looks like for you. Your passion for whatever this is has to come through, because that's their only currency, you know, is to get, okay, to feed you more of that and to feed you opportunities so that you can take advantage and grow. That them seeing you grow is what you would owe them. So I would say, or I'd say if I were to do it again, there's several people that I've crossed paths with in my career that you know what, I should have like, we were cool, you know, everything was fine, we worked together, but I could have really juiced those relationships for just more guidance. So I don't have to do all the learning on my own. Just by being in the space, I can have somebody who is holding me accountable for what I said I wanted to get. Accountability is just huge. That's going to be huge in any career space, but that's just huge. Everybody, that one thing, being accountable and holding yourself accountable and holding yourself accountable to your team members, that's probably more important than anything else, other than just your work ethic.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's good to know, because we always meet people, but we never know how to continue the communication.
Yeah, I mean, and anyway, it you know, whether it's a, you know, you won't necessarily be able to. And my daughter has gone through. She's had a couple of mentors, and they don't all work out. It's any relationship. It's just like any relationship. You know, you'll find somebody that you think, oh wow, it'd be cool if they would take me under their wing, and maybe you have a few phone calls, you know, and they feel good, but you just don't like really click, or the timing isn't right. And so what we kind of talked to her about is that, hey, don't stop there. Like, the idea of the motivation for finding a mentor, the need is still there. Just because that wasn't what you envisioned, you have to keep looking, because you still need some guidance, you still need help, you still need, you know, someone to hold you accountable, and keep you focused. So yeah, it's just an ongoing process. I have to do that. I do that myself. And it's more passive at my age. It's more, you know, these are more or less peers who do things that I admire, in ways that I admire, or they're, you know, they have certain skills that I'm watching, and in some instances explicitly watching and saying, hey, you know, I dig what you're doing there. How did you get to that? Or you know, what do you think about this? You know, that type of thing. So it really is on you to pursue the information.
I have a question from like way earlier.
That's
Yeah, sorry to backtrack. It's about the Kansas City campaign, but I really liked them. I was like noticing that like you had your individuals who were kind of like the like old whippersnapper kind of vibe, and then you had Darlene, who's very much like, yeah, I party on the weekends. Like she was having a good time. Yeah, what was the like? I guess how did that come up? Like, how did you decide to do that different persona as opposed to the others?
Great question. Great observation too. You know what? A lot of times when you are creating things, and it goes for anything, even if you're just creating a painting, you'll have an idea and you'll pursue that idea, but things happen along the way. The thing that happened with that actress, you know, I don't know I've never experienced this either. I don't know what it was, but she was just angry and didn't want to play the role. I think when she got to the space where we were shooting, I don't think she understood that she was to play an elderly person. And I think that she was a little offended at that. So it was literally pulling teeth to get her to do anything. And at a certain point, we're just throwing out lines like, all right, say this, say that, do this. And, you know, because it was either get her to give us something that would work or simply lose the spot. So there was also another actor that simply we couldn't do anything with what we had. Like the performance simply was not there. It was useless. So you kind of, you know, you do what you can. It's an iterative process that you are always trying to improve on what you set out to make, you know, in every way. So every opportunity that you have to make a decision regarding what you're creating is a chance to make sure that it's awesome as it can be. Everything from, hey, are we, you know, do we think that the music, is this the best music that we have access to right now? Is this the best color that it can be? Is it right? Are these lines really good? Are they the best ones? So it's just, you're constantly doing that. But yeah, that was a great observation.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that.
Of course.
Jalisha asked a really important question a little bit ago in the chat. She asked, what are other Black creative directors, or are there other Black creative directors at your job? What is your job doing or not doing that should be to make creatives of color more comfortable and able to share their creative ideas?
Good question. So you're asking specifically, what is the company that I work for doing? Jaleesa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, honestly, I've been in advertising, well, you know, over 20 years. It's the best place I've ever worked for in that regard. A lot of it has to do, in fairness, to the current atmosphere, the current socio-political atmosphere, and there's an overall awareness of people of color and just the historical truths and what that means today for us in terms of opportunity. There's, you know, the country is having a moment with that. So, and a lot of companies, a lot of agencies as well they're looking inward and saying, hey, you know, where are we on these issues? What do we believe? And what are we actually doing? And are we following through? What you'll find is that in the heat of that moment, folks will make proclamations. They'll say, we're gonna be this way, we're gonna do these things. And then as time goes, just like with anything, that other needs, other desires become more important, become more present, more immediate. And we'll see over time. But right now, from what I've observed, they're doing a kick-ass job. They really are doing the uncomfortable work that dealing with, you know, these issues can be. It's hard, it's tough, but so far they're really, really impressing me. So that said, I know of, it's easier for me to say, here it is. They've hired maybe 120 so people since COVID, and 26% of those people are people of color, not necessarily Black, but are people of color. And I've been impressed to see how many women they've in leadership roles that they've brought in. So the Barkley I can speak for is they're doing their part. Other thoughts?
Oh.
Good question.
Yeah. how are y'all improving like company like culture? Or what does your company culture look like?
First of all, company culture right now it's a huge challenge, because imagine, trying to wrangle a culture, a virtual culture, so they are doing a lot of things, like just we once a week, and I think they were twice a week before I'd gotten there. Once a week, there's a full agency meeting, and it's festive. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, these are the things that we need everybody to do. Of course, there's some of that housekeeping stuff, but for the most part, it's an energy, moment that we're all sharing. And that's strictly for culture, it's a time for people to find out things, to ask questions, to get excited around what's coming down the pipe for the company, what the prospects are. It's time for you to share some of the wins, the small wins that you don't really get to hear about. I'm in my team. I don't really hear about all the stuff that other people are doing. I may hear it a little bit here and there, but I don't know it. I don't know what effort it took to achieve whatever milestone had been achieved. I don't know what progress they're making with some of the key clients. So that these are moments that become very culture defining. Fortunately, they had a great culture prior. So that foundation was there, so that when the pandemic came, it was probably easier for them than most. For new people, I'll say I even feel it. I feel like, okay, yeah, I can buy in to the things that they're doing. For instance, in that Friday, the meeting's on Friday, the agency meeting. They've just changed from having the agency, like the top agency people guiding the meeting, to just having just random Barkley employees guiding the meeting, in teams of 2. So this week, a buddy of mine and I will be guiding that meeting. Pray for us. But things like that, they go a long way to give you a sense of connectedness to a group of people that you're doing a lot of work with. Everybody's maxed out, all agencies, tax people, like you're just working. It's hard work. It's a lot of work. It's fun. If you like it, if you like to do this kind of thing, but it's a lot of work. And so it's good to be able to really invest in a culture that people want to be a part of. Because if you don't have that, then all you have is work, and it's not going to always be fun.
Which leads to my last question on what makes you excited to go to work? Like, are you still passionate about arts and the same things you were before? Have they changed? Have they drained? Do you feel burnt out?
I often feel burnt out, of course. I don't feel that that's bad. I think that it's my responsibility to take care of myself, of course, which I don't always do. Who does? But yeah, I get burnt out. But I have to make things. I don't have a choice. So I can do it here, or I could, go broke trying to be an artist. But I have to make it. I have to, my mind has to solve problems in that way. And I've certainly learned to really enjoy the collaborative making, like making with other people, making with not just only my ideas, or the idea that my ideas don't necessarily have to be right, and they can only get better if they're shared with other smart people, with people who don't look like me, don't think like me, who don't come from where I've come from. I just enjoy that process. I enjoy starting over and with the same problem and solving it in a different way. I just dig that stuff.
And how do you motivate your team to keep going during the pandemic? Like,
Hey, Chet. I'm joking.
You
No, not
threaten
that.
people's paycheck during the pandemic. Wow, the disrespect.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. You know, it's different, and that is it's really a people thing. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have kids, and so a lot of it, it's teaching. You know, a lot of it is that. A lot of it is just being empathetic and just kind of understanding that. For instance, if you're talking about motivation, if people don't seem motivated, that's not necessarily their fault. It's something that we need to figure out and understand, but it's not necessarily their fault. And so that doesn't need to be a cause for anger, or threats or any of that. You just need to, especially if this is a valuable member of your company, of your team, you really have to be invested enough to say, okay, something's not working. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Do you need time off? What can we do? Everything can be negotiated, but we have to, you know, if we're all just kind of, if it's good faith, you know, they're not necessarily trying to get away, dodge work or anything. Yeah, so it's you listen, you watch, you be honest, you be vulnerable, all that stuff. It's just people.
I have a question about when you were first starting out as an art director, what are some mistakes that you've made, or I guess also that you've seen people who are starting out have made?
Well, I mean, I think when you're starting out, that's the whole thing. Like you need to collect mistakes. You need to make more and better mistakes. That's really it. I don't know that I had any major mistakes that I look back and think, oh God, it was horrible that happened. I've done shitty ads. I've, you know, gotten myself in trouble, you know, yelling at people, yelling at partners, not people beneath me, yelling at partners, having arguments with partners, creative partners, but no real trouble, I'd say, or mistakes that weren't, I'll say this, client meetings and such. I have huge anxiety with that. I have stage fright. I don't like performing. I hate performing. My parents are performers. I've known performance all my life, but I hate having the stage. I just don't like it, but it's part of the job. So I had to learn to separate myself from that process. I had to learn that, you know, if I'm focused on the work, I won't have an issue. If I'm focused on, you know, how I might be perceived, then I'm in trouble because it's not about me. That's not where my focus and my energy is. If my focus and my energy is on this thing that we made with care, that we made for you, I'll be all right, because everything is, I know what went into this thing I made. And I, you know, nothing else that you're thinking, whether it be, you know, if I have something in my teeth or you think I suck, none of that matters, because all I'm really going to be focused on is this thing that you need to understand. So that's been my process, at least, or at least my thinking.
Jennifer put a question in the chat. She asked, what kind of short and long-term goals do you usually set for yourself? And like, it can be related to work or not. She just wants to know, like, what are your short and long-term goals?
I'm terrible with goal setting. Never been good. And that's something else that I would have gotten a mentor to hold me accountable on that. I'd say, well, I've for me, I haven't been as good as I'd like to be articulating goals. we're always operating under goals. We may not necessarily have spoken them. I think for me, my short-term goals are to contribute to the company within my realm of responsibility just superbly, to make myself indispensable in as many ways as possible, whether that is as a mentor for younger creatives, or a you know, an energy level set for the team, or a client go-to where, hey, they feel like if I'm involved, it's going to be okay. Those are things that just my personality is kind of built to work toward. So those goals just kind of are on autopilot for me. Long term, I don't know. I really don't know. But I know you should have them, guys. Do what I say, not what I do.
Jennifer said thanks. And then Laura also has a question. She asks, is there a particular starting point or starting position that best translates into becoming a creative director later on?
You know what? So the buddy that I was talking to today, this morning, he and I are the ones that are going to host that meeting on Friday. And while we were coming up with just a little stupid, back and forth bit that we're going to do, he made a joke about the fact that most creative directors, they tend to be writers. And it's just true. Like, writers have and I don't know, Taryn, if that's your experience, some of the creative directors that go highest tend to be writers. And I have a theory about that. My theory is that simply the comfort and familiarity with language, it just wins at the end. If you need to pick up an image or show a person an image and then use your words to explain it, writers just have a quicker facility with that. They're just able to do that and communicate well. It really ultimately comes down to communication. So if there was, I'd put my money there. Or if I was starting over and I didn't have to draw, which I had to draw, I didn't have a choice. I'd probably be a writer.
I have a friend that was Joan. Do you remember Joan Lyons?
Joan Lyons is responsible for a large portion of my career.
So she became a writer. She was an art director for 20 years.
I remember that. Yeah.
She still writes. Yeah. She said the art directors do a lot more work.
They do, no doubt. They do. I don't know that it's harder per se if you're really writing well, but we do more work, more hours of it, certainly. Yeah. Tell Joan I said, hey, I haven't talked to her in years. She so when I was going to, y'all know GSD&M, right? Y'all in Austin? Yeah. So it was like 1999. They just won Land Rover. And I was in New York. I was working at a small agency there, and I sent like 10 portfolios there, like physical portfolios. They weren't websites. They were like physical portfolios. I sent 10 of them, all to the agency, all different creative directors. Joan said, you know what? Yeah, you should work here. And she handed my book over, and the rest is history.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think we're almost done, right, Ricardo? Like, running out of time. One question I had for you, Sam, is, so you talked about your two kids, which are kind of these guys' age.
Oh yeah, my kids are 22.
What do you advise them? I know they're both creative, and like, what do you tell them? What would you tell these guys, like, just in finding a path for a career?
Well, are you guys creatives? Are you, for the most part, you creatives?
Of various sorts.
Okay, yeah, of course. I think that what we were constantly kind of driving home to our kids is that being a creative is not, it looks to people outside, from the outside looking in, it can look like you just want to, not work or just kind of, be in the clouds. But being a creative it's really entrepreneurship. You are responsible for creating and selling yourself at all times in different ways, depending on where you are. And, there are always these opportunities to advance your craft and your opportunity to get your craft seen. It's all relationships. You guys know that stuff. It's the same in the arts. You have to get to a point where you are your loudest voice. You're your loudest kind of voice of influence creatively. That doesn't mean that you're going to always be right, but there has to be some level of just kind of fortitude with your point of view. You have to have that. If you don't have that, you don't really have a strong starting point. You have to be able to own and accept who you are and what you're making as valid, and really meditate on that. Like, what you want to put out into the world is significant, and you have a lot to learn, but it doesn't diminish its significance. And so you have to just absolutely be comfortable with that, because the world is only populated with people who are prepared to judge your work. That's it. There's just millions of judges, not millions of makers. So you have to make with your own voice in mind, and let that guide you.
Well said. And you can't be right for everybody.
You cannot. Do not. That was a mistake, actually. Yeah, I made a mistake trying to please too many people, and you don't get anywhere. So, good point, Karen.
What would be the best way to reach you if we want to connect?
Well, you can get me on the socials. I'm not very active, but if you want to connect in what way, just say, "Hey, Sam, what's up?"
Just to see, like, for example, since you're a creative director, for any of us who want to get like feedback or advice on our portfolios, or just want to like connect, like make you part of our network, or just thank you for coming to like hear, or just like talk about anything.
You can always use LinkedIn. You should practice doing that anyway. I don't know if you guys are on there. It's the business world. I don't care for it, but it's necessary, and you should get familiar. We tell our kids to get familiar with LinkedIn and connect with people. So that's one way, certainly. And y'all all welcome to my email for sure. The thing I'll tell you is that you'll need to be patient with me because on top of being quite busy, I'm quite forgetful. So if you don't hear right back from me, it's not because I don't like you or I don't want to talk to you. It's likely because, I'll either need another nudge or I simply at the time don't have the time. So with that, you can certainly email me.
I'm glad you remembered tonight.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Sam.
Does anyone else have any questions for closing off?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you for coming and talk to us. I think like there's a lot of creatives here, and I'm sure like this was one of the creative pathways that we've had where we've had the most people ask questions. So I think like everyone is going to get a lot of really good stuff out of it.
Good. I hope so.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, do you have any closing remarks or anything you want to add?
Closing remarks. Jeez, that sounds so formal. No, I don't have closing remarks. You just go be awesome, guys. It's a good time. Looks like we have, plenty of people of color here. Use this opportunity. Use it. Reach out to people. Talk to people. Connect with folks that you uncover on LinkedIn. Just reach out. Cold calls. There's nothing wrong with that. Worst thing that can happen is you won't hear from them. But right now, somehow, people of color are seen. So go do your thing. Get out there. Just reach out to as many people as possible. See what opportunities are there. Don't be shy about that. Don't be shy about being judged. You're being judged anyway. Get it done. Put some creative portfolio. Constantly make. Just make until you can't make anymore. Just make shit and just go. That is your built-in progress mechanism. Is doing. Make mistakes. Make better, bigger mistakes. Learn from those mistakes. Share those mistakes, but don't stop making. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Of course.
And thank you for sharing your advice. I really enjoyed everything, and I think I speak for all of us that you like had some really great stuff to say, and I think we are all inspired to keep being creative and reach our goals.
Sweet. I'm so psyched to hear that. I appreciate it. I'm fulfilled.
Cool. And you're getting a lot of thank yous here in the chat.
Dope. Love it.
Cool.
Big thing.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And for all of the CLA people and anybody else here joining us, hopefully we get to see you again next week. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.